I'm Caitlin, the owner of Bluehydrangeapress, which is a really fancy way of saying I run a small business of hand-drawn vinyl stickers and other handmade goods from my kitchen table here. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because I accidentally found a place that's better for selling my stickers and other goods than Etsy. I know a lot of small business owners and a lot of creators and artists are looking for something that's better than Etsy, and I have an argument for a place that just might be. It might be. There are still many, many, many pros of Etsy for a lot of business owners like myself, but there are a long list of cons too. So I tried something a little different and I think it's worth sharing. So while I test out one of my new button holders, I thought we would talk about what's been happening because I genuinely think more small business owners should try this. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago where I thought I would be selling the most stickers, Facebook Marketplace probably would have been pretty close to the bottom of the list. I, like many others, have sold on Marketplace often, and I mostly associated it with used couches, old baby stuff, people trying to get rid of exercise equipment that they weren't using anymore. Selling handmade stickers or really handmade goods of any type really didn't cross my mind. But I decided to list a few of my best sellers on Etsy on Marketplace, kind of more as an experiment. And the results were incredibly shocking. And I'm not just using that as a buzzword. I genuinely didn't think I would sell any, let alone the quantities that I've sold. And that's not because Marketplace is some magical, like, unknown secret, but I think it's because I completely misunderstood how people actually shop and want to shop for handmade products. So I'm just gonna share what worked, what hasn't, and why I think more handmade businesses should at least give it a try. Because at the end of the day, it's free to list. All you have to do is take it down if it's not working. And the worst that could happen is you get some more visibility in your actual community. This definitely wasn't some big-brained business strategy. I wasn't thinking that I was gonna hack the algorithm or beat Etsy's fees or anything like that. I just kind of thought the listings already exist from what I typed up on Etsy. I already have the photos and I have all the packaging. Facebook Marketplace kind of just became another platform that I could kind of copy and paste into and import what I already had created. See, do I want it to be a little stiffer than this? So like I said, I just kind of thought it cost me nothing to list here. The worst that could happen is that nothing happens. The best that could happen is maybe somebody local discovers my product and is interested in it and wants to buy that or look at the other goods that I sell. I think what Facebook allows and Etsy or even Shopify doesn't, that surprised me the most, wasn't necessarily the volume of sales, but the conversations that happened because of my listings. People weren't just buying them and messaging me for the delivery. They wanted to know who designed them and how I designed them. They wanted to talk about Disney, which you already know is like my people, it's my crowd. They asked about future designs that I had in mind, which was really exciting. And I think arguably the best part, they told me about local shops that might even be interested in having my product in their storefront, which I hadn't really considered and I definitely didn't market for, but is definitely a possibility for me. Etsy is fantastic for a lot of things, but Marketplace felt immediately more human and more hands-on than Etsy ever did because it feels like you're talking to your actual community, which you are, rather than just like a group of strangers that happen to find you in an algorithm. There's a few major pros when thinking about something like Facebook Marketplace. One of them was that shipping was gone. I didn't have to think about shipping and neither did the buyer. The buyer didn't have to pay for shipping like they do through Etsy, which turns a $4 sticker into sometimes a $13 sticker. And that's honestly one of the biggest costs of handmade items. How are we immediately stuck? Take two. I now didn't have to convince somebody to pay shipping on a really small item. Is this going to work? I don't know. The next thing that surprised me, at least in my case, was that I had a lot of repeat buyers. I even had a lot of buyers that saw my one sticker listing and was curious as to what else I had and asked to see the rest of my products. And this is why we test things, ladies and gentlemen. I found that once somebody realizes that you're local and you have more to offer, they will keep coming back. Things I learned very quickly was that no shipping removes buyer hesitation almost all the time. That makes easier impulse purchases, and seasonal listings move more quickly because they're nearby. Oh my God, what is happening? Listing on Facebook also opens the door for groups, which is something that Etsy does not offer, and it's been kind of miraculous. I can list my things and cross-post them on Disney buy sell groups, on Disney lover groups, on Disney fan art groups. With that, friends can share listings, they can share with their other friends, they can share into groups who they know would love it. And if you ever did decide to boost your listings, the pricing is a whole lot cheaper than Etsy ads are. One of the most exciting things was having businesses reach out for wholesale opportunities. These are businesses that I'm familiar with, that I've shopped at before because they're in my community, so I know exactly what they're offering and if they will work with my product. I'll be the first to tell you, after years of selling old things and things that didn't fit or I didn't need anymore, that Facebook Marketplace is not perfect. Sometimes people no-show. And if you have sold on Facebook ever before, you are probably familiar with that phenomena. Sometimes they'll message and ask a bunch of questions about your product and then disappear without you making a sale. The algorithm loves your listing for a few days and then it basically disappears in the masses of posts that are coming from your community. Meeting people and driving across town to hand deliver products does take time. And that's where shipping starts to become a lot more of an attractive idea, because you kind of just stick it in an envelope, put it in the post office mailbox, and off it goes, and your job is kind of done. So this isn't a forever business plan. It's just something that might work for you for a while. It's worth mentioning that you also have to take other precautions. You have to meet in a safe public place that you can both feel comfortable at. You do have to spend time coordinating that pickup. And Marketplace attracts bargain hunters. So if you're not a person who's very good at holding your pricing and being firm, it might not be for you. It definitely may work better for some products than others. It just kind of depends on your size, your audience, what you're looking to sell, and definitely the pricing. I don't think every business can or should list on Facebook Marketplace. But if you're selling stickers, tumblers, bookmarks, magnets, keychains, apparel is a big one, candles, laser cut products, anything that's really giftable, I honestly think it's worth at least experimenting with. Like we said at the beginning, it's literally free. And if you're listing in other places, it's kind of just a matter of like copy and pasting your listings and maybe making the titles a little more simple and a little more searchable. And I don't think that it will ever replace Etsy or Shopify, but it doesn't have to. Well, now that I've completely punched a billion holes into this is why we need to test things. The biggest lesson I learned from this is not that I could sell on another platform, because Obviously, I knew that. I spent so much of my time trying to get better at one platform and learn the algorithm that I kind of forgot that customers exist outside of Etsy. I know that sounds dumb, but sometimes growing your business isn't necessarily about products. Sometimes it's just about learning where to sell those products and who your people are, your audience, your ideal client, your perfect customer. We hear a lot about that in podcasts and business books and all of that, but I think it's worth experimenting with to actually find your crowd. Facebook Marketplace is probably still not going to become the main platform that I sell on. But I'm really glad that I stopped assuming that Etsy had to do all of the heavy lifting, because even in my first 2 days, I had legitimately 100 requests and I made 50 sales. Even a 50% conversion rate is infinitely higher than I have ever gotten on Etsy on an average day. Even just in the past 30 days, I think that's probably 5 times the conversion rate that I've gotten on Etsy. So if you've been thinking about trying something new, maybe this is your sign to just go ahead and run the experiment. It costs you literally nothing, unlike Etsy. Because it's also worth noting that unlike Etsy, where I have a pretty low amount of repeat customers, I have had at least 5 repeat customers, I believe, and 2 come back and ask me after they got their product and looked it over and felt the quality and maybe put it on a water bottle or a laptop and say, I really want you to let me know when you have future designs. Specifically, they were looking for the Walt Disney World map, which again is very specific customer feedback that almost does the market research for me. Also, for transparency's sake, out of all of those sales, I've only had 1 no-show so far. And I think that just kind of shows like the motivation of the buyer rather than the person who puts it in their cart on Etsy and waits until Christmas time to actually order it. I also have had a bunch of Disney conversations, and somebody even had a ton of tips for me for the cruise, and that was priceless. So no, I'm not saying here's the secret to make more sales. I'm just kind of saying here's what happened when I tried it, and maybe it's worth trying for you too. Because honestly, I thought I'd sell to maybe 2 or 3 local friends who saw my listing on Facebook show up on their friend feed. But instead, I spent all last week driving all over town delivering orders to really cool Disney people. And in the very near future, I may or may not be selling in local stores in their brick and mortar shops. I kind of plan to have this like finished little keychain by the end of this video, but so anyway, give it a shot. If you've sold your handmade goods, let me know how it went. I'm really curious. This is only my 2nd week of doing it, but like I said, my sales volume has gone up exponentially, and it hasn't even hit the busy season for us handmakers. So I'm really looking forward to fall and winter. I think it's gonna go even better because I do have some seasonal products in mind that I know my handmade buyers and my local shoppers will really love. So stay tuned. If you made it through this entire video wondering if I ever even got this to work, I did. And thank you to those on Instagram who responded to my stories saying that it was a feed dog issue, because it was, in fact. This machine and the faux leather were just having a little disagreement, and we figured it out. That really feels pretty fitting for this conversation and this channel, because transparency is always at the forefront. One of the biggest lessons that I'm learning with my business now that I'm kind of restarting it in my 30s is that you don't need to just throw something away when it doesn't work. It really just takes one small adjustment most of the time to make it work. So this crazy looking Mickey, where I am testing out every stitch, every speed, every tension, it's a very accurate representation of running a small business. So if you take away one thing from this video or this insane looking Mickey, it's that you shouldn't be afraid to experiment, because eventually something will stick. You never actually know what's going to work until you just give it a shot. I definitely did not think that just covering the feed dogs with cardstock was actually going to work, but thank you guys, because it did. So maybe next time you tune in, this Mickey won't look so crazy. It'll be a finished product. I'm currently cutting a new one with the Cricut, so we will see. Bye, guys.